The area that I chose to write about for my essay was the Spanish conquest and colonization of the area known as California. The reason I chose to write about this was because California is one of those places we tend not to talk about much in consideration of colonial Latin America. To me, it does seem overlooked, and I wanted to do some more research into it. I did choose to do three articles instead of a book. My three articles were called the San Diego on the Edge of Empires, History of Colonization in California, and 1768 to 1820 Exploration of Colonial California. All three of these articles do overlap when it comes to their information, but each one does kind of have a more of a focal point that it tries to focus on, and that's what I focused on in these articles. The first article, which is early San Diego on the Edge of Empires, was primarily talked about the couple of men who were under Hernan Cortez, and he was one who invaded what is known as now Mexico. One of these men was Juan Rodriguez Cabrero. He was the first Spaniard to actually see San Diego and that part of California. And he was on a voyage when that happened up the Pacific coast. The reason why I found this important was because it kind of marked the beginning to the Spanish conquest in California. And this was kind of that turning point in history where the Spanish did start to be more involved in the area. The second article that I chose was the history of colonization in California. This one did cover a wide date range. It covered from the time when Spanish first arrived at the area all the way up to the 21st century. But this article did have a main focus of talking about the missions in the area known as California. And these missions ended up being a total of 21 coastal missions. And the reason why this is important is because to me, the Spanish did focus on spreading religion a lot, but they also used it as a cover a lot to hold military troops. And this was very important at the time to understand because Russia and the British were starting to be seen in the area a lot, and the Spanish wanted to have more of a show of force, and they actually used these coastal missions as military footholds at times, and they harbored infantry there to go inland. Um, and then the other article that I had was 1768 to 1820 exploration and colonial California. Um, this article did talk about a couple of important things, which was the early trade that the Spanish had with coastal Native Americans and the disease that came of it. And this is important because, as we saw in Mexico and around there, disease played a major factor into the native population and ultimately how easy the Spanish were able to conquer that area. And the same thing happened in California. Disease ran rampant through the area, and this allowed for the Spanish to, in a sense, conquest it a whole lot easier compared to if it was still full of natives. And that trade that was involved, the natives trade for a lot of things such as weapons. And early in the Spanish conquest, these natives actually took these weapons and fought other native tribes further inland, just uh, weakening it even more. Um, the way that this correlates to kind of what we learned throughout the year was, in my opinion, how power hungry the Spanish were. As you saw throughout the whole year, the Spanish kept wanting more and more and more and more, and they kept pushing further and further. This is the same story, but in California. Disease, continues to tell a story there, and if you took the name California off of this, you would think that this was just another um, topic that we learned, but it was just a whole different region, but it was the same story, and this was very common with the Spanish, and that was just something I wanted to point out. Thank you.